And Bernoulli physics is the thing, Bernoulli physics is the thing, is the physics that makes wings on an airplane lift.
Yeah.
All right, and many other things. I have sort of a funny.
Over, it pulls it towards it. Basically, yeah.
Yeah, it creates a vacuum. Creates a vacuum. Bernoulli physics and singing, real quick, Draven. Bernoulli physics and singing. I'm in my trachea. These are my vocal folds. If I blow at the right optimized level through the vocal folds, it will create a vacuum in the glottis. Now, glottis just means the space between my vocal folds, okay? I like to call it passive.
Right. Hi, and welcome back to Mr. Opera, or This is Opera, depending on what your flavor of opera is, I guess. And today we're talking about Bernoulli physics in singing, and that whole idea that we're... one second here. So we're talking about the idea that the vocal tract is using similar physics to, well, I guess in some cases people are saying airplane wings, but then in other cases they seem to be saying something a little bit different. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get to the good stuff, there's something that needs to be taken care of. Something that just something that just needs to be said. So yeah, you may not like me, but how could you hate this cat? So go ahead and send your donations to coffee.com. Look for Mr. Opera on there. And if you do, there's going to be a fun little sound during the live stream. Some fun little animation. So I'm told. So we're going to be talking about this Bernoulli thing. And first how this came up is that someone was telling me about an Instagram reel that he saw. I said, we're going to watch that real quick. It's by... Oh, I can't remember this gentleman's name. I've just got the worst memory for names. Yeah, Jordan W. Pitts, who is a pretty good sounding singer using epilaryngeal narrowing. But he's got some interesting things to say about how the voice works. So let's just talk about this, because we are after all doing a bullshit inspection here, if you will.
A lot of singers get confused around the idea of placement, the idea of focused resonant singing. Resonance is achieved by a relaxed vocal tract. The vocal tract is where the air
Resonance.
flows up and out through the vocal cord.
So should I stop here?
Under something called the Bernoulli effect. Bernoulli
Okay.
effect is the same function as like when the hose is going and you put your thumb over the hose, the water sprays out much more forcefully. That's the same thing that's happening with the air in between your vocal folds. The vocal folds come together quite naturally. The resistance of the vocal
Okay.
folds is what creates sound. We actually don't need to engage anything
Okay, so
else.
he's not so much talking. I mean, it would be the same effect, but he's talking now about the effect of putting a nozzle on a garden hose and how that makes the air, the water coming out shoot out more powerfully. So we need to unpack some things here, and understand the Bernoulli effect a little bit better, and maybe see if the current science is really telling us that the vocal folds use this. And then maybe we can talk about, like, so if things turn out like I am telling you they will turn out, which is that this is bullshit, then we got to talk about why someone would be saying it. So let's just keep watching.
Than just the breath and putting the chords together to create a sound. I'm doing that with my voice right now. There's air passing up underneath the vocal folds and they're
Okay.
together creating a sound, and my vocal tract, my musculature, my
I feel like we have to...
structure, the shape of my face and throat.
I'm going to give this guy a little bit of a tiny bit of a boost to his gain, but this is going to take me a second. So just bear with me for 1 second. I'm working on this. So let's give him a little boost. Okay. Now he should be a bit louder now. Oh my god. And I accidentally
The sound of my voice. There are
gave
ways
him
to
the
do
goat.
this more efficiently in singing, but everybody is born with one unique core sound.
With one what?
Passing up underneath the vocal folds and they're coming together, creating a sound, and my vocal tract, my musculature, my bone structure, the shape of my face and throat is what is...
Well, okay, this is going to be hard to score.
There are ways to do this more efficiently in singing, but everybody is born with one unique core sound.
With one what? Everybody's born with one. I don't know. I don't know what he was saying about. But let's just first get some truths and untruths in, and then I don't know. We're gonna have to think about if this is bullshit or just untrue, because bullshit has this element of intention, you know.
A lot of singers get confused around the idea of placement, the idea of focused resonant singing. Resonance is achieved.
I guess, yeah. A lot of, oh, we gotta reset the count. Sorry. Okay. Gonna reset the count. Now we're set to 0. And we got 1 here. 1 true. I think a lot of singers are, I mean, it's subjective, I guess. What's a lot? But I think a lot of singers are confused about these things. Especially because, well, placement is imaginary. So we know that there's no placement in real life. Like that's not, like, people who believe in placement, generally the explanations they give for what's going on don't make any sense. It's fantasy physics kind of thing. That's excuse me. Yeah, that's all true. But then that doesn't mean that there's not some underlying truth thing, especially from the experiential perspective, where people who, maybe not everyone, but some people who are given these concepts of placing the sound and singing by feel of some kind of vibrations, etc., perception of where resonance is it perceptions of whether resonance is focused or not, which is not a thing. You can't have focused resonance. That's focus is for, collecting light rays and concentrating them all towards a particular direction. Then you're focusing those light rays. So we're not bending light or anything. There's focus. Okay, that's all subjective, etc. But I think some people get some benefit out of this placement business. And that to me seems the most plausible explanation for why people keep talking about it. So let me see if we got anything going on in the chats here real quick. I think I have to check. I have to be over here. Okay. Yeah, that's right, Christopher. I think that's what he's referring to. But as we're gonna see, well, it's interesting that this is maybe more. The whole garden hose thing is a maybe better application of Bernoulli than the whole airplane wings thing, bringing the vocal folds back together. But of course, the place where you're going to be coupling them together is going to be area of interest number 3. So, and that's going to be your epilaryngeal constriction, I think. So, as we'll see, yeah, we'll go on a bit. You'll see there's something to this. They looked it up somewhere, but okay. So, but yeah, just to be a little generous, I mean, he said something true.
By a relaxed vocal tract. The vocal tract
okay, what?
is where the air is achieved by a resonant singing. Resonance is achieved by a relaxed vocal tract. The vocal tract is
what? So that's bullshit. I mean, that's like a word, not a word salad, but it's just that resonance is achieved by relaxed or not relaxed vocal tract. Not that you can't say it's a whole vocal tract. There's a million pieces that could be relaxed. Well, not a million, but there's a bunch of pieces that could be relaxed or not relaxed. That's just neither here nor there. And resonance is always kind of, if you're, putting a source into a tube, you're going to resonate that source. I mean, relaxed, not relaxed. The resonance is, shall we say, achieved? I don't know. It's kind of weird, heavy bullshit here. So, and I see intention there.
Flows up and out through the vocal cords. The vocal is,
And
a lot of singers get confused around
the intention, I would say, by the way, is the intent to create this feeling of trust that, you know, I'm in his group, that he is kind of knowledgeable and able to provide some kind of expertise and useful to the group, etc., etc. So he's creating this narrative that he's very knowledgeable, but what he just said is kind of the opposite of knowledgeable. So that's why I put the bullshit there. And that doesn't seem to me like you can do it accidentally. So, but we all bullshit a bit, so I'm not, you know.
Placement, the idea of focused resonance.
Okay.
Resonance is achieved by a relaxed vocal tract.
I already
The vocal
scored that.
tract is where the air flows up and out.
Air flows
up and out through the vocal cords. And out through
Well,
the
that's
air
true.
Flows up and out through the vocal cords. The vocal
Let me see.
air flows up and out, relaxed vocal tract in singing. Resonance is achieved by a relaxed vocal tract. The vocal tract is where the air flows up and out through the
vocal tract is where the air flows up and out. This is kind of more word salad, I guess. I don't know what this even means. I don't know what to score here. That's I guess not true, but he could think that it's true. I guess he could actually think that. I mean, yeah, okay. So you do have flow going on, and at the same time you have the acoustic stuff going on. Both things are going on, and as far as I understand from Ingo Tietze's paper on nonlinear source filter interactions, the first type of interaction that he talks about is this. It has to would be kind of doing something more similar to this Bernoulli stuff. Like it works with, it's like the back pressure people talk about, shall we say. And it's got to do with the overall reactance or inertance, I think. Inertance of the inertance and compliance, and then you have this match between a compliant trachea, I think, and then an inert vocal tract, and then that's ideal, blah blah blah. But that's going on, but it's not Bernoulli as far as I know. And then we also have the second type of nonlinear interaction that's more to do with the resonance itself, and feedback loops that you can create between the resonance of the source and the source itself. So, I hope that's clear as mud.
Words function under something called the Bernoulli effect. Bernoulli effect is the same.
Okay, so I'm putting that untrue. The vocal folds do not function, they do not sustain their oscillation with the Bernoulli effect. Whoops. And that was excessive, sorry.
Bernoulli effect is the same function as like when the hose is going and you put your thumb over the hose, the water sprays out much more forcefully.
I mean, that's true. That's not how I've heard it used in the context of singing. Usually it's with usually people talk about wings, and I think they say that the shape of the vocal folds is doing this wing thing, but it doesn't make much sense. It's like, how many airplanes do you see with floppy wings made out of mucus membranes?
In between your vocal folds. The vocal folds come together quite naturally. The resistance of the vocal folds.
The vocal folds come together quite naturally. I mean, I guess it's true. I mean, what are we thinking? Like they come together supernaturally, maybe. Like there's a ghost inside your vocal tract that's helping your vocal folds come together, or more likely interfering. Ghosts don't, they're usually interfering with things. Poltergeist of the voice. So here we go.
Sound. We actually don't need to engage anything else other than just the breath and putting the chords together to create a sound.
I mean, wow. He was just telling us about resonance and stuff. So obviously there's something else. Yeah. I think what he's trying to get at is just kinds of words that sound something like relax, sound something like release, sound something like easy, not a lot of effort. And I think it's not hard to imagine why these are the terms that became very popular with people, like marketing voice stuff. So, and if this guy's interacting with a lot of materials having to do with marketing voice stuff, he's picking up on it. He's picking up on the patterns. And I guess as we'll see, like there's degrees of how kind of ridiculous they can be with their actual understanding of things, while nonetheless playing the part rather convincingly of someone who knows what the hell they're talking about.
I'm doing that with my voice right now. There's air passing up underneath.
Yeah, that's true. There's air passing. The thing is, so there's this flow thing, right? But then when it comes to this second type, as far as I know, anyway, at least, then we're not thinking of the air as like flowing or moving or doing like a steady squirt or flow in the sense of the garden hose. We have a source of vibration that's a flow interrupter. That's its job, is interrupting flow. And then we have these nonlinear interactions between it and, shall we say, the attachment that you put on the garden hose. And those are affecting your overall results. And then at the same time, you also have like the shape of the nozzle itself. But you might notice that like the vocal tract, when it's shaped like a garden hose nozzle, so narrow at the end, doesn't give you a powerful phonation. It makes the phonation weaker. You open your mouth a lot to make the phonation strong. It's the most instinctive thing. It's natural. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. Let's see. So yes, Christopher, that's how it's all working. And we'll see that like there's some rather credible looking sources talking about this being something that's going on in singing. So I guess where we could think of this happening, this garden hose thing, I guess, and Bernoulli forces would be right around the vocal folds themselves. But then what would be creating this kind of suction? Like, how would you do it? I mean, it seems you would use a constriction. Anyway, maybe not. Maybe the theories that they have, maybe that's why they say you need some kind of expansion. But we'll look at some interesting Bernoulli related content.
Together
So-
creating sound in my vocal tract, my musculature, my bone structure, the shape of
Muscular-
my face, throat is what is achieving the sound of my voice. There are
Well,
ways to do
bone
this
structure, not really. I mean, it is insofar as it's contributing to like some of the internal shape of his vocal tract. But basically, like your bones are not the resonator. The resonator is this tube. I mean, I've shown you 3D shapes of the internal geometry of that. And I guess that's something I'll have to bring back. I get, it's hard making all these live streams. But I do owe you guys another tutorial on visualizing vocal acoustics. So, let's watch a little bit more.
in singing, but everybody is born with one unique course.
And everybody's born with one, I don't know. So, but basic idea is you don't need to work so hard, I guess, because you have this Bernoulli thing helping you out. So you should then this is where they take the logic usually. In order to get more closure, more forces pulling the vocal folds together, if you can work it out, what they say is you need to speed up the airflow. And then that's the cue that they give, to speed up the airflow. And that would make sense if Bernoulli forces is what we're bringing the vocal folds together. But is it? And I say no. Okay, so this is an actual talk on the myoelastic theory of phonation, which is actually that's the Bernoulli thing that we're talking about. It's an out-of-date model of phonation and how phonation works. And if you want to know about science stuff, if you want to know about voice stuff related to science, I think this is the way to do it. Don't go to voice teachers. If you want the best knowledge, go to the most knowledgeable people. Your voice teacher is maybe a lot more experienced with singing stuff than some voice science person. That's true, but when it comes to the actual science, then just go to straight science sources, and I think try to understand it for yourself. So I guess I think the link is going to be in the description for where I got this. But there's the I'll put myself next to it. So right where my head is there. I think if you search for that, you should find this. And I won't make you watch the whole. I mean, I could, I guess. We could watch this whole thing, but I'm not going to do bullshit inspector on this. Obviously, I'd be out of my my depth. But she's giving an overview of how this is supposed to work.
The pressure in this narrow space decreases. When that happens, the vocal folds are sucked in back due to the Bernoulli's effect and due to the elastic properties of the vocal folds. When that happens, the pressure below the vocal folds again builds up, and thus the next cycle of vibration takes place.
So did you
So
get that?
how well does this theory
She's explaining what the actual theory is. Let me turn down my microphone a little bit here. I think so. It's clipping. It looks like it's clipping a little bit.
explains self-sustained oscillations of the vocal folds? Consider the example of a pendulum. You give a push to the pendulum and the pendulum is set into vibrations. But after some time, when you don't have a push again, the pendulum comes back to its original state, thus the oscillations getting damped out.
Okay, are we clear so far? Why we needed some kind of explanation for what's going on? Because you have air that's blowing the vocal folds apart. That's easy to understand. But what's hard to understand is what the heck is making them come back together again. It's obviously not. It's not a muscle that's coming and doing some kind of movement 440 times a second to sing a high A for a tenor. So there's something else going on. But as far as the what is doing it, the Bernoulli principle hasn't been one of the explanations that's relied on by actual voice scientists for quite some time. They will admit to you that this doesn't. Well, we'll see why. But basically, the tissues are the issue. The tissues are the issues. Oh God.
Even in the vocal folds, if there is no driving force continuously, the vocal continuously
let me rewind a little bit so that
and the pendulum is set into vibrations. But after some time, when you don't have a push again, the pendulum.
Let me just rewind a little bit more politely here.
Oscillations of the vocal folds. Consider the example of a pendulum. You give a push to the pendulum and the pendulum is set into vibrations. But after some time, when you don't have a push again, the pendulum comes back to its original state, thus the oscillations getting damped out. Similarly, even in the vocal folds, if there is no driving force continuously, the vocal fold oscillations do not sustain. Therefore, we need a self-sustained oscillations of the vocal folds for phonation.
That's giving the basic issue.
Therefore, there is some driving force that's making the vocal fold oscillations self-sustained. However, the myoelastic aerodynamic theory and the Bernoulli's effect does not explain how this self-sustained oscillations takes place, as it cannot explain the continual energy transfer or conversion from the airstream to the tissues. Therefore, the oscillation.
Maybe I could help with an example. Have you ever seen an airplane with rubber wings, or with any kind of deformable material for the wings? And no, you wouldn't see that because you would have a material issue. You would, of course, you wouldn't be able to fly like that. So Bernoulli would be maybe a great idea for little stiff wings, that were inside of the vocal tract or something like that. And just a completely different situation. But it doesn't explain the oscillation of the vocal folds. And it hasn't been offered seriously as a model for a long time. It's like nobody's doing current work, as far as I know, on vocal voice research, serious voice research that's using the myoelastic theory and Bernoulli effect to understand vocal fold oscillation. Yeah, so the elasticity and all of that stuff could explain some things, but it doesn't explain what's going on. I recommend watching this presentation, and then she does presentations on other models as well.
Would damp out based on this theory. So to explain the self-sustained oscillations of the vocal folds, we need the 3-mass model to explain the vertical phase difference in the vocal fold vibration and thus the generation of the mucosal waves. Please.
So we basically just don't have airplane wings. It's not. It's the wrong. It's excuse me. It's the wrong materials. Maybe I need to do my voice straw, or no, but I think this is what Garcia warned about, because I'm here sitting in front of there's a piano keyboard here, and I'm using the piano keyboard to control all the live stream stuff. So it looks like you don't even have to be playing. You'll wreck your voice just live streaming while sitting at a keyboard. Garcia was not crazy. Jeez, really. Okay, yeah. So airplane wings do flex a bit, but no, they're rigid. There's no mucosal wave on airplane wings. They're not. Yeah. I mean, you see some kind of marine animals with these little kind of wave actions for propelling themselves, but they're not flying. There are some marine animals that fly in the water as opposed to swim, and apparently, yeah, there's a distinction between flying in the water and swimming, but I can't define that for you. So anyway, the link should be in the video description. And then you can cuttlefish have that wavy action. So here's
the larynx is a critically important.
This is the kind of video where you see this stuff. I think that's what these people are watching. Is this kind of thing. It looks really official.
And for speech.
I mean, look at this.
Very deep in the tissues
really
of the neck.
slick.
The larynx is made
So
up of a series of
professional.
cartilages. Placed
I have to
atop
keep
the trachea.
talking, or we're gonna
The
have
cricoid cartilage sits
problems
immediately
with
on the
copyright
trachea,
here.
and the thyroid cartilage articulates
Right? So this looks
the
official.
lateral crico, rocking them toward the midline.
So official.
Phonation for speech is initiated by simultaneously starting airflow from the lungs and trachea and bringing the vocal folds closer together. When the folds move closer together, the air pressure between them drops.
Right?
Vocal folds are
Animations
sucked
and
into the
everything.
airstream and are pulled closed.
That's
The air
Bernoulli
pressure beneath
and
the folds
myoelastic.
blows them open, but they are pulled back together by elasticity and the negative pressure of the Bernoulli effect.
Right?
This
So
cycle
that's what they mean by myoelastic. What is it again? Aerodynamic or whatever. Anyway, yeah, you've got. Wait, let me see. Myoelastic aerodynamic theory of phonation. And this is I think what the voice teachers are watching. But notice there's no citations. If you go to this video, I guess we gotta look. But I don't see any way to check this. It's just look at us. We have this anatomy stuff. We're official. We're gonna watch some
Another
Pavarotti
example
later.
of Bernoulli's principle that
So-
we stumbled on somewhat by accident.
It's okay.
in the
So
form of
the
the-
the area that we're looking at is, I think, more analogous to this little, I guess, Bernoulli demonstration. Well, okay, so Christopher, but the garden hose thing, like actually that is, as far as I know, when you twang, when you have this epilaryngeal narrowing, that is, I think this other, well, it's the same Bernoulli effect, and as far as I know, that is contributing to not closure. It's not sucking the vocal folds back together, but it's making the closing part faster than the opening part, even though it's the same times per minute or per second. Yeah, so that is going, like, there is something, and it's twang. That's the thing. The thing is, it's twang. There's also these other, there are also these other effects that can raise the close quotient, I think. And those are neither. They're not this Bernoulli stuff. They're not the garden hose thing. They're weird effects that happen when you couple formants to harmonics. But for that to be a thing, you have to be in the range in which the formants are close enough to the harmonics to pick one and resonate it to a lower harmonic. Anyway, let's keep watching.
Faucet here. Now we notice that
So this is more
as
like,
water comes out of the faucet when I turn it on. It narrows
like
down
if you
through a
imagine
constriction here.
the
So
flow going into the vocal tract, then you could think of something like this, and then Bernoulli, I guess.
velocity of the water is going to increase.
Because everyone's
We're gonna
focused
have
on
high
the
velocity
mouth, they think of flow coming out of the mouth, but what about flow going from the trachea into the vocal tract?
water coming out through the nozzle. That'll correspond to low pressure. High velocity corresponds to low pressure.
So
I'll
that's the
illustrate
Bernoulli. High velocity corresponds to low pressure.
that by putting this hose on here.
And the idea was that this low pressure is sucking the vocal folds back together.
And blowing the water through the hose.
But watch what happens.
the
This is cool.
And out of the hose. And we're going to watch what happens right in this region of highest velocity. Right there. Now, can you see there's air in there? And there was no air in the line to start with, and there are no
Right.
bubbles going up the tube.
And what's getting
So that air has to
sucked
be-
together?
Water vapor that comes from the water actually evaporating because of the low pressure created from the high velocity.
Okay.
Also, if you look
Oh, I mean, it's crazy. Low pressure, heat, water vapor being created, and then all these weird effects. But remember what you saw, that when you have this kind of thing going on, you would also you're not just going to be able to float the vocal folds back together or something, or suck them back together without affecting all of the surrounding tissue. So so now maybe this is where people got the idea, oh, I also have to hold all of that open. I have to hold the larynx open as much as possible, and everything needs to be open as much as possible so that it doesn't all get sucked together, I guess. But then this was done through relaxation. But then if you're relaxing and you have this Bernoulli forces going on where you're coupling these two things together, even with a little bit of narrowing, you're going to start to pull the surrounding tissue together. So, like, the vocal folds aren't just hanging out there in some kind of ether. Any forces that are going on would be affecting everything that it can affect. And if we're talking about a bunch of suction, well, then that would be affecting surrounding things too, not just the vocal folds. So it doesn't really make sense. But the key reason it doesn't make sense is because the material is not going to handle it.
The Bernoulli physics is the thing.
You're not going to get the transfer of energy that you need. And then we can watch this. So this guy is extra nuts. And he takes it really far, like the clowning. And he's much more obvious. I forget what his name is. Robert Lunty, that's his name. And this guy's a caricature. So what I love about these caricature types is that it's easier to see what's going on when you're laughing. When you can't help but laugh, and when you recognize the emotional development of a toddler in the body of a middle-aged man, then it can be educational. So that's why I like these examples. The first example we looked at with Jordan Pitts is a little bit harder to make the case, because if you go, I didn't load any up, but if you go and you listen to his singing, it's pretty good. Sounds great, and therefore he's in, according to the Mr. Opera Challenge ethos, I guess, he's qualified to say his thing. He's qualified to. You wouldn't be crazy to consider his advice, given that he can actually do the things. But also, if he's telling you a fantasy version of physics and you can confirm that that's not how things work, well, then you can evaluate the relationship between the person and reality. And often the relationship of a person with reality doesn't necessarily mirror the relationship of a person with their voice. They might be really good at singing, but not very good at physics or critical thinking, etc., etc. We're on YouTube here, so everyone's an autodidact, so I guess I don't have to justify any of that. So onwards to watching a little bit of this craziness. And I feel like I'm doing bullshit inspection I'm trying to make this less personal. So this is not on any one particular person. This is a bullshit inspection of the Bernoulli effect in singing.
On an airplane lift.
Yeah.
All right. And many other things.
Okay.
I have sort of a funny.
Over, it pulls it towards it. Basically, yeah.
Yeah, it creates a vacuum. Creates a vacuum. Bernoulli physics and singing, real quick, Draven. Bernoulli physics and singing. I'm in my trachea. These are my focal folds. If I blow at the right optimized level through the vocal folds, it will create a vacuum.
What was that?
At the right optimized level through the vocal folds, it will. I'm in my trachea. These are my focal folds. If I blow at the right optimized level,
so if I think he said if he blows at the right.
And Bernoulli physics is the physics that makes wings on an airplane lift.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
and,
true.
and many other things. I can have
Yes,
sort of
air
a funny.
passes over, it pulls it towards it. Basically, yeah.
Yeah, it creates a
Air-
vacuum. Creates a vacuum.
Well,
Bernoulli physics.
wait
and
a
singing real
minute,
quick,
wait.
Draven. Bernoulli physics and
I don't think that's true. I don't think it creates a vacuum. I'm pretty sure. There's no vacuum. Great. Yeah. Anyway, got lift, but there's no vacuum going on. Anyway.
singing. I'm in my trachea. These are my vocal folds. If I blow
I'm in my trachea as well.
at the right optimized level through the vocal folds, it will create a vacuum
No.
in the glottis. Now, glottis just means the space between my vocal folds, okay?
The
My
opening,
glottis is
yeah.
open,
True.
my glottis is closed. Now, if I blow enough wind through this, it creates a vacuum, and the vocal folds will...
Wait a minute. Maybe that is true. If you blow enough wind through... No. I think if you blow enough wind in there to create a vacuum, you're going to... It's just no. No.
close. You'll induce vocal fold adduction through Bernoulli physics, and when you do that, that's when you begin to get good arpeggio type resonation and singing
That's
experiences.
bullshit. Let's hear this.
Vocal fold adduction.
We gotta
Dude.
write. I need to write these. These could be in fortune. This like fortune cookie things, or train an AI.
Right optimized level through the vocal folds, it will create a vacuum
Vacuum.
in the glottis.
Okay.
Now, glottis
Yeah.
just means the space between my vocal folds, okay?
We
My
already
glottis
scored
is
that. It's
open,
true. It's
my
true.
glottis is closed. Now, if I blow enough wind through this, it creates a vacuum, and the vocal folds they'll close. You'll induce vocal fold adduction
Okay, so that's
through
bullshit.
Bernoulli physics. And when you do that, that's when you begin to get good arpeggio type resonation and singing experiences, which means really great respiration.
Arpeggio type resonation and singing experiences. Arpeggio type resonation and singing experiences. So, like, the mask is kind of off on what the Bernoulli thing is, I think. You know, like, why does it appeal to someone who's going to be making content on singing? And I think it's because it's especially amenable to bullshitting. You know, it's like intimidating, the whole Bernoulli thing, the whole physics thing. We're talking about physics. It makes airplanes fly. So, and that's kind of like real life magic. You can do all these amazing things with physics. So you're associating it with that and the jet age, you know, and all that stuff. It allows you to create this kind of authority, this through intimidation, basically, through this pretending to understand something that it doesn't make sense in the first place. So it's not possible that he actually understands the physics directly. The physics have been, shall we say, deprecated. We don't, like, no one serious is using myoelastic aerodynamic model of vocal fold oscillation anymore. This whole Bernoulli thing is out. The tissues just aren't the kind of thing that could support that. But then you see what I love about this kind of clip is you see how they put things together. And yeah, adduction arpeggio optimization vacuum is this kind of like epic bullshit word salad. But that's the kind of thing that he's saying. And this kind of thing it's popular. I don't know how popular his brand of it is. Like, I don't see how you could be particularly. So, I mean, there's money coming from somewhere. So I don't get it. But it's a popular thing to talk about the Bernoulli effect and to say that it somehow makes a difference. But if it's not real, and we've known it isn't real for like a long time, that this, the whole idea that this is how you're getting your vocal fold oscillation it's no longer really legitimate. But why is it persisting? Well, then the reason it's persisting is that it's really easy to think this idea that there's some airplane wings thing, and if you just think about the right amount of airflow or something, eventually you'll get there. It makes it seem like there's any kind of point to whatever it is whatever kind of nonsense he's telling this person.
And it's when you get vocal fold closure, I like to call it passive vocal fold closure through Bernoulli physics by creating a vacuum. And that way you get vocal fold closure.
I guess he does like to call it that. I should be more generous.
Squeezing muscles. Without paying the price.
Okay, closure without squeezing muscles?
Closure without squeezing muscles.
Let's just hear that one more time.
And it's when you get vocal fold closure, I like to call it passive vocal fold closure through Bernoulli physics by creating a vacuum. And that way you get vocal fold closure without squeezing muscles.
I mean, what even if you had something contributing to the self-sustaining nature of vocal fold oscillation, something has to start it. Something has to resist flow in the first place to even get the whole thing started. So it doesn't make a lick of sense. It just doesn't make sense. But this is not making any less sense than any of the more respectable, shall we say, tutorials or content that are teaching these same concepts. Like, so for the first guy, seemed a lot more respectable and maybe more knowledgeable. It's harder to see that doesn't know what he's talking about, but it's the same information, and it's equally false.
Without paying the price of getting fatigued by squeezing too.
There's no magic, anything that will allow you to sing endlessly without getting fatigued. You can't do anything that requires effort endlessly without getting fatigued. You can make it so that you can fatigue later. You can be more efficient and maximize how long you can perform without fatigue. But if you're not actually managing that as something, like, so if you're not talking about when you get fatigued, but talking about how you don't get fatigued because you don't work hard, chances are you're a bullshitter. You're just a bullshitter, and you sound like crap.
Too much by twanging too much or too hard.
But then, maybe Jordan W. Pitts is telling you that he achieves everything he does without any effort, and he doesn't sound like crap, and he's a lot more respectful. I guess the thing is that we just know the only way he could be making a lot of the sounds he makes is with epilaryngeal narrowing, because we know physics from 2023, not 1823. So yeah.
Or
I mean, also from
beyond that
1823.
optimized level, the physiology, because you're getting vocal fold closure through the Bernoulli physics,
No.
which is really like
You're not.
taking a basketball shot and making all net, just an all net shot without it bouncing off the rim.
What?
If you can get
So that's just plain old bullshit. It doesn't even it's a non sequitur. So it's hard to. He just went effortlessly from talking about the mechanism, the nature of what's going on, to feeding images of victory to the victim, to the mark, I guess, to the student here. So this is the kind of what's interesting to observe, in the vein of James Randi, if you will, is the technique to this, because whether or not they're freaking nuts like this guy, or whether they're a little more subtle about it like Jordan, it still comes down to the same thing. Anyway, so Tony says, and by defining the natural core sound of the student, he can pretend he's not instructing them on their personal subjective sound ideal, and basically gaslight the student into obedience. Yeah, that's how it works. And then there's also, we can give some lip service, I guess, to prog lighting, because there's this special kind of gaslighting that goes with word salad users, and this kind of technique, this kind of manipulation technique that's being used, and that is what I call it prog lighting. That's when you take control specifically of the victim's sense of making some kind of progress. So you start spinning narratives about some kind of progress occurring. And it gets to a point where the only people who can actually see this progress are people who have a relationship to the teacher. People who don't have a relationship to the teacher are like, wow, you're not singing very well these days. But by the time the prog lighting has happened, it's almost impossible to convince someone that they are not sounding the way that their teacher is telling them they are sounding. That no, yes, it's actually how you sound, and it's not because recordings are not able to capture how awesome you are. You just sound that bad, etc., etc. So that kind of thing goes on, and I think one thing I'd like to do on this channel with it's not just for the jokes, watching this kind of thing, is like, let's try to break down how he works this. That was a timing thing. So the way he took his timing, he used the timing thing, I don't know, timing technique, I guess, where it's not about making some kind of logical connection between two things. You just use timing. So the fact that you talked about them one after the other, and you've been so far connecting things logically or trying to connect one thing to the next with some kind of logical flow. Now the fact that I say two things one after the other makes you expect that there is a logical connection. If you're not seeing the logical connection, and I'm moving fast and I'm moving you along and overwhelming you with physics and blah blah blah, then you're less likely to look into it, less likely to question what it is that I'm telling you. So I think this is a kind of manipulation.
Closure can't always do it. Sometimes you're still singing great, and then everybody's having fun. You're having fun as a singer, but you're not really getting great Bernoulli physics. You might just trying to squeeze to get.
Again, this is more than bullshit, though. This is manipulation. This is gaslighting. So let's watch this.
Without paying the price of getting fatigued by squeezing too much, by twanging too much or too hard, or beyond that optimized level. The physiology.
First of all, I've never heard of anyone having fatigue from twanging too hard. I've heard of and experienced fatigue from not having enough twang, from being unable to get a metallic coordination going because of failure to constrict area of interest number 3 in a helpful way. And that's a thing, but I've never heard of anyone getting tired from too much twang. Twang gets tired, and then when twang gets tired and starts to get a bit loose, then the voice can get real tired real fast from too much airflow.
Because you're getting vocal fold closure through the Bernoulli physics, which is really like taking a basketball shot
again?
and making all net, just an all net shot without it bouncing off the rim. Okay. If you can get a closure, can't always do it. Sometimes you're still singing great, and then everybody's having fun. You're having fun as a singer, but you're not really getting great Bernoulli physics. You might just try to squeeze.
The idea here is devalue someone who's maybe having fun singing, right? Might be inconvenient for someone who would like you to be in a crisis with your singing. So this is an attempt to put a wedge between whoever's listening to this and their sense of whether or not they're singing well, whether or not they're okay, doing a good job. So I call that gaslighting because it's trying to replace the sense of reality that's independent of anyone else. And I mean, look at his face right in that moment too. It's like, oh geez, micro expressions. So you not that that's a thing. I know it's not. I know it's not scientific, but I don't know. He seems like he hates the person he's talking to. Anyway, but I think that's a way to try to get the control in, which seems to be with this person rather instinctual.
Yourself through it from time to time, but when we're shooting for baskets in singing, best practice would be to try to get good Bernoulli physics in through the glottis.
Okay, so oh God, somebody save me. So getting good suction, I guess, good Bernoulli vacuums is all about getting good Bernoulli, which is like shooting baskets without hitting the rim. And singing is all about scoring baskets. what? Like, what is... So, I mean, first of all, in basketball, whether or not you hit the rim doesn't matter. Like he said, it's about scoring baskets. And whether or not someone can come along and say you didn't get all your Bernoullis doesn't really matter. It's who won the game, who made the most baskets. So, anyway, but the whole thing is just a salad of semi-logical phrases. Like, there's no... What's the logical link between making baskets, Bernoulli, and singing? And I just don't... Yeah. Yeah, Christopher, so...
Passive fold closure.
Second.
Through this vacuum.
That's... So if a higher velocity creates lower pressure, which closes the vocal folds, then should we blow the air out as fast as possible? That's what you would think, you know. Well, if the Bernoulli thing was how it works, then that is how. And there's tons of voice coaches giving advice like that. But to me, what that shows is that it doesn't matter for a voice coach if their advice actually has anything to do with anything or not. That's optional. It's just optional. You know, you're going to be doing your mum thing or whatever with the teacher. You're going to feel more inclined to sing or whatever. And, well, I mean, that'll be pretty much that. There's nothing... It's not... What's the word? Salient? It's not... It just doesn't matter, the stuff that they're saying. I'm just checking this is Opera Chat here. Yeah, they're not. They're successfully boycotting Mr. Opera, except in the comments section. But they don't like live chat. I think This is Opera is afraid of. But I mean, their audience, they're afraid of like intimacy to such a high degree that live chat is too close for them. Yeah. Anyway, let's hear a little bit more of this.
And being able to kind of let loose on the musculature, squeezing.
So it comes down again to, you say the word Bernoulli, you mentioned that there's something like flying an airplane and that it's easy and effortless. You talk about the feeling of flying. You talk about making baskets. Whatever, some kind of bullshit. And it goes with this idea of releasing extrinsic musculature that you would sing really well if only you weren't doing things that interfere with singing well. So that like the natural state that will release your own natural special sound is something like just being healthy. You just remove the obstacles and that's what's going to come out. And that's different from saying, okay, look, singing is a skill. And singing a particular style is a particular skill. And singing a particular Fach in that style is a particular skill set. It's a bunch of skills, I guess. And that's, I think, the logical way to think about all of this. The less logical way is to think of one kind of universal principle or skill that you could teach to everybody. It's related to this Bernoulli thing, I guess. and you've got bullshit physics to back it all up. This persists. I see that there's less and less because probably if you're talking about Bernoulli, you can't sell people straws because straws work on nonlinear acoustics. They work on more modern acoustics. They don't work using this model of vocal tract oscillation.
Two balloons tied with strings and stuck at a height.
Okay.
What will
And
happen
this
if
is
you blow between the balloons? Let's take a look.
so. And this is
Unlike
the
what we
idea.
expect, the balloons actually come
Right.
together and stick to each other when air
Notice.
is blown between them.
The balloons are
Why
rigid.
did this happen? When
Balloons
air is
are
blown
not
between the balloons, the
making a
air starts
mucosal
moving at a
wave
higher
or
speed than the
deforming
air
in
around
response
it.
to this.
Daniel Bernoulli has explained that a fast-moving
Airflow.
air exerts lower pressure on
Right,
the
and they're not
objects than
sealed
static
inside
air.
of a tube.
Air is flowing between the balloons. Air on the farther sides is static. Hence, pressure between
this
the
is
balloons
his
lower
idea,
than
I
the
guess,
pressure on the farther sides of the balloons.
Of
This pushes the balloons
these
inside.
are supposed to be the
making
vocal
them stick
folds,
to each
and
other.
then that is Bernoulli. That's the Bernoulli thing, but it makes not a lick of sense. So yeah. So what do you guys want to watch some Pavarotti or what? Train and look, I love this training vocal. There's the in case you want to rot your brain, go to thevocaliststudio.com. I do not recommend it. I'm a little bit dumber since we watched that. Probably you're a little bit dumber too. Sorry, I'm not sorry because it's worth it for the comedy gold of watching guys like Robert Lunty
Another
trying to
example of Bernoulli's principle that we stumbled on.
ply their trade.
Hello everyone.
But this
Hello everyone.
this kind of
Welcome
video,
to my
which is a
YouTube
lot
channel.
less showy, that we watched earlier in the live stream, this is maybe a more credible place to get your information.
Voice Science and Vocal Health with me, your host, Kate. Today we
Although I guess now I could be contributing to some kind of bias against meat, the myoelastic aerodynamic theory of phonation. But I say, like, don't take my word for it that this is not a great theory. So we got some Pavarotti that we could watch. Let me see if you guys want to watch or if I should end. If nobody says anything, we're not going to watch any Pavarotti. There's some guy saying something. Announcements. What was the first thing he sang? Okay, nobody's saying anything. Oh, I get there's a delay, so are we gonna watch Pavarotti, guys, or not? And there's a special treat at the end, by the way. I have a improved closing screen. Okay, nobody wants to watch Pavarotti? What was he? Yes, Christopher, but do you want to watch? Okay. I'll take that as one vote for Pavarotti. And nobody seems to be voting against Pavarotti. So let's just watch, I guess. And what does he sing first in this? So, some Verdi Requiem. In Gemisco. Neutral. And then he picks up some metal as he starts to do crescendo. So essentially, what I think goes on, is that you've got... Maybe we can make this idea of singing your neutral in the same position as your edge or overdrive or curbing, whatever. That you still have as much of the shape the same as possible. I think that's what goes on. So there's some like having a particular vowel modification or whatever might not be about projection in certain instances. It might just be about making things fit with what's going to happen later or what happened before. Yeah, I mean, what do we say about this? I guess it's like a little slightly reduced density at the top, reduced density. I don't know if it's edge or overdrive. It's not the loudest thing, you know. It's a little bit quiet, isn't it? And then with the less extreme volume, so he's not trying to do a big fortissimo. You have a less extreme mouth shape. And that, I think that's a choice that you see people making if they're going to make a small mouth shape or not for when they decrescendo, or if they're going to pull back the volume but keep the mouth shape where it would be for louder or metallic version. The loud. That's the transition. And I think he does like sort narrow the pharynx, I guess, from side to side. And I get the impression his larynx isn't actually as low as many other great tenors, especially in the middle. And we can't see because of his beard, but I would bet you the larynx height more or less tracks with the level of his chin. I can sort of see the shadow of the larynx, and it's like in the middle. Maybe I'm just making that up. No veins. Let's see. Wait. And it's a big change in mouth opening. So now he's doing everything through a more open mouth. And that goes with the change, the musical change. So still more limited, more limited, maybe slightly nasal. Now more open. Now more open. And he did that same open right before the next thing. The little... Right before... Watch. What is that? Well, just before he descends. He flings the jaw open. It's the details with this guy. Just yeah, the you can get pretty clear and loud with pretty small mouth openings, just not as loud. That's the only, and it sounds less metallic. It's always going to sound less metallic. But yeah, it's not like you can't do anything with your mouth more closed. You can do a lot. But you want to I guess you want to make sure that your intention is not to sing the loudest thing you can. If your intention is to sing the loudest thing you can, then, especially if you're in this range we were just looking at, it's going to be a big open mouth. Lower down, then okay, yeah, that's going to be a bit different. The optimal mouth opening. The big mouth opening, shall we say, will be smaller than an equivalent quote-unquote big mouth opening for higher pitches. I think more in the noble posture here. And it's an interesting, it's a really interesting shot. But we can see how he sets up with one leg in front and the chest more up, chest more forward, rather than rounding the upper back and pulling and sliding the scapula on the thing you make with your back, if you will. On the kind of platform you can make with your back. That's awesome. That's the hardest part of that aria, is that low note there. Cremerine. Neutral. So I mean, there's nothing complicated about that. It sounds great because it's Pavarotti, but it's really just quiet singing. And I don't know, people talk about like filling the hall with this kind of singing or whatever, and it just doesn't fill the hall. It can't. Now we're metallic. And it's all tracking with the mouth. Bigger sound, bigger mouth. Statuettes. Yeah, now it's a bigger. We had that little opening slightly before changing the pitch again. Yeah, so just before because it's statuens, there's a note there, and he opens the mouth more right on top with the note, right in sync with the new note, and that I wonder if was something that Meloki was getting at with some of the things he seems to be saying in the lesson I was listening to. That's more covered. That This is breathy neutral. But this is with the open. See, this is with the mouth open as if it was a big sound, and you get this kind of thicker. It's still falsetto kind of thing, but it sounds like thicker. I can't explain. You often get the breathy thing. Nice. So yeah, I guess you could say he's not the most extreme with the mouth openings of all the, and I don't know what are all the formant harmonic couplings on all of these. I guess it's probably all just F2H3 for most of these pitches. Well, for Christopher, I think with the back, it's not the back necessarily only. It's that if you have this kind of bias towards flexion, so if you have some energy kind of flexing the upper back, and at the same time you retract the scapula, the two counteract each other, and you get a kind of upright posture. But it's more oriented towards flexion. You can think of throwing a hook or an uppercut in boxing, and that has the same feature. And then the other side of it is if you think more extension of the upper back, so arching the back, and you counteract that by pushing the chest forward, so that makes you more upright. You don't wind up like this, and you're not pulling your scapula back while also extending your upper back. And if I try to, I can show you a little bit. So if I want a thicker sound and I'm wanting to rotate my head more up, and I think about, it's not even thinking about it. It's literally doing it. But I keep my chest more forward. So I don't allow this to come up. It's probably going to come up and back. And I would be not allowing my ribs to get away from my pelvis. You can almost think it's like I'm answering a phone with both hands. And when I combine those two together, and if I were to pull my scapula back while also doing this, I'll get so I can still sing the same pitches, but in the second example, my vocal folds wind up getting more stretched out. And then for more of a flexion approach, or for more, you could say, trying to tuck your chin, then again, I'm trying to cancel out the one force with another force. So I have this force bringing my chin down and curving my back, making me into a kind of caveman shape. And I could pull my scapula back, but without arching my back. ah, makes this kind of sound. And it's a little bit more, it's a little bit less nasty, I guess. But that's the significance of that. I look at that because it helps give me clues about what they're going for. If they're going more for the flexion thing, then I can look at how they're managing all the different considerations that have to do with that. And also the same with extension. I can make sense of why someone would want to tuck their chin, for instance, etc., etc. Yeah, so I guess that's enough for today. I think we've done enough. This has been Mr. Opera, and thanks for watching. I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy I'm here. Happy we're all here. Keep singing, and I don't know, keep old schooling. I guess if you're old school, keep old schooling, and if you're new school, then definitely keep new schooling. Okay, so I'll see you guys.
The straw.
It's just a straw, right?
It's not just any old straw. We've sized it very particularly, you guys.
So the SWT Straw Pro comes with a minimum of 40 resistance configurations in one device.
And then we have 2 straws that are the exact same size, diameter, and length. And this is so that we have options.
After you've practiced the exercises for maybe 5 minutes,
you'll see here that the vocal cords aren't in sync with each other.
You have to put more work within the body to just get things going because the straw isn't providing you with enough.
Press your voice like this. It is very important that you let no air escape around the straw between your lips or through your nose.
But the thing is with that, it cuts off the nasal resonance part of singing, which is very important to singing.
It's almost as if you're trying to release it out through the straw to whatever's in front of you.
You will find when you go back to normal speech that your voice seems to be coming out of your eyes instead of your throat.
If you are splashing yourself, you're creating volcanoes, and that is not allowed.